here on .net. I'm going to try to do another analysis here for the crypto stuff found on Binance, July 9th. Just created it 10 minutes ago, 16:33. All right, so the areas that we'll be focusing on are these three cryptos. They're very small. I do personally think they're insignificant, but what we're looking at is more mechanics versus the actual data. But let's take a look at them anyways. So we have our volume mean at just over 1 million here, and our volatility is just around 9%. So all this other stuff I've identified, I'm going to remove that. All these numbers I'm scrolling through quickly here. Now the other thing is our first pair here, WTC, BTC. Standard deviation is much higher. The volume is really low for me, but it's on there, so let's talk about it. As you know, the Fibonacci levels, are we within our golden range with the price? The answer is yes. So here's our first set of charts. A few other improvements I made to the website is to enable to include 7 inches versus 6.5 inches. So hopefully I can show you some more precision, but I'll show you that when we see it. So our first one here is the moving average cross signals. So we have a recent cross, which means a buy signal. We do have an upward trend here. As I said, we are below our golden zone. And then here on the statistical, you'll see that there's slightly more negative returns. And that's since conception of the crypto pair. Also, hopefully you'll notice that we are working with the patterns. So here we find a harmonic pattern, Gartley to be exact. And then other thing is that we have here a head and shoulder generated, but is clearly exceeded the expected move. So even though this is fairly small, you know, if you were to trade in this in value, you probably would have done okay. As you can see here on the neckline, it did exceed the distance here. So that did okay, but we didn't catch it. Now, here's the other thing. We're always looking for market reversals. So I've stripped out anything earlier, I believe, less than a week or two. But these are fairly recent. So when you look at July 9th, looks like I've gone back as far as 2 weeks, but we were able to generate these patterns detected using candlesticks, and they include the 3 outside and the 3 star outside. So I've got all these lined up, and the first one to worry about is this 3 stars in the south. So just confirm that is the case. Yep, 3 stars in the south. So what this basically means is there is a probability that you will have a market reversal here. You can probably see it in one of the charts that I'll show you later on. But the funny thing is that yes, you do have a bullish reversal 86% of the time, but when you factor in after 10 days, as you can see here, the overall performance rank is pretty well dead last. So basically what this means is even though you will get a bullish signal from this candlestick pattern, that basically the outcome on the price will pretty well be dead. So it's kind of useless in a way. Like it will say, yes, there is a market reversal, but it looks like it just, the price is going to go nowhere. And when you look at these charts, we can easily confirm that at a 6-month chart, let's say. Actually, no, we'll show you that in a minute. So we have these 2 patterns here. So this one is pretty accurate in explaining that yes, you do have a market reversal, but 10 days from now, you will most likely really have no performance with it. So it's kind of a useless candlestick, which I may actually remove. So the CDL 3 outside, which we also have described here. And again, we're using the pattern site, which I really like. Or maybe I got my things reversed. So you'll want to avoid the candlestick pattern if you hold the position on for more than 10 days. So I believe this is what I'm saying. We have a market reversal. Testing shows that the 3 outside up candlesticks is a bullish reversal 75% of the time. Very good reversal. Performance is 34th in the high on the performance list. So the breakout trend shows promise. But the best move after the breakout is a drop of 7.14%. And that's the best move. That ranks 7th near the top of the 103 candlesticks. Looks like the height of the candle added to the top of the candle and upward breakout or subtracted from the bottom of the pattern gives a price target. Price only hits the 40% of the time, and that is the best showing. It warns not to expect a straight line run before you encounter a minor or high along the way. Okay, so basically these are very frequent, these 3 outside, but don't put a lot of emphasis and expectation on these patterns. And again, when you start to look at the other pattern on here, you can clearly see that it's really gone nowhere pretty well. We have a leg and a leg down, and it's quite possible that this may actually remain down. But let's look at the trends here. Quite interesting. We do have 2 trends, but it's trading along the lower trend line, which is good, but it's not falling through that. But I wouldn't even touch this until this price at least exceeds this trend line, or better yet, maybe even the 50% to confirm some kind of movement, because this is probably going to go nowhere, so why tie up capital? So as I said earlier about other 180 look back 180 days versus 90, we're getting a slow build up, which is good. You could probably make some money here, and it's starting to go positive momentum. But right about here is the bottom. The RSI sets the bottom. At least what I've seen over the last and the analysis that I've done over the last number of weeks, this is pretty well your classic point that says, yes, this is going to hit. And you have so many either algo traders having their algos kick in to push up the volume, or at least a little bit in price. And I can guarantee you that that's usually 100% of the time. And then, of course, the momentum gets pushed up. But let me just see if I can find another one. See, this doesn't happen too often. That's going back 6 months. So just so you know, I'm working on a watch list. And basically what I'm looking for are 2 things now to verify confirmation of things. The RSI is something I can use as an entry point. Seems to work really, really well. And the other thing that I'm using is I want to see if this particular crypto pair will outperform Bitcoin against the US dollar as a standard metric. No different if you were to use a stock and use the S&P 500 as the benchmark to compare performance. So those are the sort of things I'm looking for in terms of entry points. And I'm going to be implementing that into my watch list, because traditionally, if there were options available, I'd use implied volatility with beta, which is what it is to compare your current pair or your current cryptocurrency pair against some form of benchmark. As I said, I plan to use Bitcoin US dollar. So when you look at, here we go, there are numerous reversals, but right here on the 30-day, you can clearly see that we have not only a push up, a bit of a pretty nice bar, candle I should say, but also all of the other ones get pushed up and we have some upward momentum. And again, that is just about right here as the RSI starts to get pushed back above 30. And that seems to be all the time. I'll show you another one as well. So here we have the GRS BTC, standard deviations below the group volatility. But again, the volume is very, very low. Here we have numerous buy and sell signals, and it's just going nowhere. And I have no interest in these kind of pairs, but it does get flagged. Even the Fibonacci's are just so tight that there's just no movement. I see no reason to trade this, but oddly enough, we do have pairs. Our daily returns are slightly higher statistically in a positive. Also, we have here our head and shoulders somewhere in there. It did exceed the expected move. So again, I always use this as possibly as another entry point. And let me write that down actually. So we have a head and shoulder, and the neckline, the black line. When that price crosses and it goes underperforms, we can use that as an entry point confirmation, because that means we possibly have some momentum going positive. And we can see from here roughly, I don't know what the exact number is, but it moves up roughly 10%, a little bit at the peak, which again, I have no idea how many days this took, but that's quite a big move. And what I'm finding, if you are going to trade in cryptocurrency world, it's these little moves in the little alternative coins that seem to perform the best that I've seen over the last, again, couple of weeks. Even though we have a downward market, but if you look for these moments where, in this case, if we put an entry here and sell somewhere along here, maybe here or here, using an ATR, average true range, that can be, again, a 10% move in a very small amount of time. And that seems to be today's way of trading in the cryptocurrency world, on top of it's all correlated back to the performance of Bitcoin as well. Because if Bitcoin's down, usually odds are about the top 100 cryptocurrencies pairs on that can be found on coinmarketcap.com. About 90% of them, at least 90%, will drop. So if you have Bitcoin that dropped for the day, 90% of those will drop. Now, if you have Bitcoin performing with a positive return for the day, which is not very often, you will get, again, a percentage, pretty high percentage, maybe 75% will be profitable. So you can trade around Bitcoin in terms of the performance, but if you want to find cryptocurrency pairs that are down, it's these sort of trigger points right along here, and as I explained, the other entry points that can be used to possibly get my last analysis, I looked at maybe 10% move, but some can be as high as 25%. So that's what we're looking for. But here we go. We have June 28th, a few days ago, last week, July 4th, a bearish signal. But here, we've already talked about this 3 stars in the south. Yeah, it's a bullish reversal, but chances are it will not perform as you would expect. And you can see what we mean by here. It's just a downward trend consistently. Now again, the charts we looked at are not looking good. This is over 6 months. You can see there's been absolutely no movement at all, good or bad. A few here along, again, the RSI. And here's an entry point right here. It's slightly gone up, but it's still below 50. So again, the RSI is very, very good on a daily and a day indicator or chart. The RSI is very, very useful for some reason. And then you can also reflect that back onto momentum. But if the momentum is always close to zero, that means then what's the point in trading it if you're going to get very little momentum? You're better off to put money into your capital into a better performing cryptocurrency with better momentum. That's pretty well. Actually, let me think here. Do we have any other cryptocurrency pairs? Let me just see here. Okay, let me try to remember if I've covered this one. So GRSBTC, this is below the group. Again, the volume is very low. Nobody's going to trade that. Downward, we got a little price signal, but so what? We got to sell a little bit later. And this is just kind of oscillating in terms of no different than scalping at best if you were to trade that. And you're going to make pretty well nothing with that. Downward trend, as I said, the Fibonacci levels are so tight. Top of, we have some slight positive return, which is fine. But again, yeah, we've covered this move up. So it has bounced off of the lower trend here. And I wouldn't even look at this until it breaks through this trend or the upper range of even historically. There's just virtually no going nowhere fast. Again, when you look at these 6 month or 180 days, look back, tight. There's a little bit RSI. Again, just a general trend going nowhere. And also, I never mentioned, I've not been mentioning this, moving averages, in our case, SMA 20, SMA 50, the EMA 200, they're just tight. There's just nothing happening here. And pretty well useless trades, even on the 30-day, it doesn't look good. Okay, so this is the other one I did not cover, the BAT, BTC. Again, the volatility is lower. But again, this volume's not bad at 2.6 million. Again, these signals are pretty well, I shouldn't say this, but in this case, they may be worthless because no different than the previous pair is that we have this notion of scalping, buy, sell, and those are signals in short order versus this one here back in late March had a bit of a move at 0.002 up to roughly 0.005. So, but that was an over 30-day move. But if you hung on to that, you could have. Well, it depends on your volume, but you could have maybe doubled your money over that time. But who knows? Upward trend. But here's another one that you can always use as an entry point. This is a long-term trend. Historically, it's crossing here, so chances are you'll be making money once that long-term trend gets broken. So I'm even going to make a note of that. Okay, so we have our long-term trend broken. And the other one, as I said, if the head and shoulders neckline gets broken as well on an upswing, but we can also use the RSI and momentum as indicators to suss out if there's true momentum. But then we can apply the ATR against the position as the momentum drops off, and then close out our profit at that point. So again, we have our Fibonacci levels. It's within range. Slightly more negative returns. We got a bullish bat. We also got a head and shoulder. But look at the performance. It's been just crushed. I would not be wanting to touch that based upon what I'm seeing. But we have a little bit of a upward trend. But again, I wouldn't get too excited about that. The moving averages have tightened up. But again, we are waiting for our but historically, again, the RSI here under 30 has jumped up, and we've gotten to an oversold condition up here. So that move went from roughly 0.002 all the way up to 0.005. And again, that is, I'm going to estimate somewhere mid-March all the way up to, let's say, roughly, but you can see the momentum has started to drop off from this point but it still got pushed up, and it just not crashed, but it just came down, roughly beginning of May. So again, if I said that we had a move of 0.0003 to 0.0005, that took roughly, I'm going to estimate about 5 weeks. Again, this is the 90-day, just getting clobbered here. But you can see along here, the volume is just much lower historically, and there is some movement of it getting pushed up. But I'd be sitting there waiting for that RSI to get banged down to 30 before that price really pops up. And again, the momentum's just going nowhere. That's pretty well. Oh no, yeah. So you can see the volume historically drops off, gets pushed back up. Yeah, this doesn't really excite me. It doesn't do anything. And the RSI once again not going anywhere on the 30 or the 70. Okay, so that's pretty well it. In conclusion, what I'll say about this, if you are at the end of the video, congrats. But I will say it as watch list potential things to look for entries is, as I said, the head and shoulder neckline, where the price breaks that. The price breaks the long-term trend, as I showed in, let me just show you this scenario here. Yeah, this one right here, where the price breaks through this long-term trend. And also what we're looking for is RSI is a really good one. And not sure about moving averages. In terms of crosses, they can be relied on as well. But that's pretty well what I'm looking at right now. Oh, and also I mentioned the performance of beta against the performance of any cryptocurrency against Bitcoin versus against the US dollar. Okay, so hopefully that'll help you out, and thanks for watching. Talk to you later.